You better be listening to Sleazoids or I must break you.
When you're all doomed to die a horrible death.
We're all doomed to die a horrible death.
When you're in that kind of trouble, who do you call on?
He's a model student.
What's the matter, retard? Can't you talk?
But when it comes to girls,
Have you even talked to her?
he's got a lot to learn.
Studies have shown that guys get much further with girls after they talk.
It's time he got his education.
I'm Miss Zenobia, the new biology teacher.
Holy Mother of God!
He has come to teach.
Sexual reproduction. Any volunteers?
Have no fear. Doc Savage is here.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Sleazoids, the podcast where we go down the rabbit hole of 20th century genre fare from the most influential canon classics to the trashiest exploitation films we can get our hands on and invite you to tag along in helping us create a canon of sleaze. Each week is a double feature grindhouse style where we discuss two films loosely related by subject, genre, actor, filmmaker, or franchise, and at the end of each episode, along with our honorary Sleazoids, which you can become by subscribing on Patreon.
Next week, we are getting very sleazy and a little down bad. So join that sleaze. Come on now.
Yeah, we decide on all the official ratings and rankings for every film that we cover. Patreon subscribers also get an on-air shoutout and 2 bonus episodes every single month, which we are in our 5th year of bonus episodes. There's like 100 plus, might even be like 110 plus bonus episodes, as well as our bonus transmission series where we talk about new release genre films, where we did one last month where we talked like what did we do? We did Batman and what was the and Ambulance, of course. And soon we're going to be talking about The Northman, probably going to be talking about a new Top Gun film. Lots of interesting things on the way. So again, patreon.com/Sleazoids podcast if you're interested in that. And speaking of which, we did have a lot of people make the jump this week. So I'm going to have to rip through pretty fast because it's a big list this week. We had James Conk, we had Luke, we had Marios Christophides, we had Darren Twomey, we had Wombat, we had Erica Ludick, we had, still going here, we had Nico Krever upgrade from $5 a month to $10 a month, and joining us for the virtual screening we do at the last Thursday of every single month, and we just did a really fun one on Deadly Prey, which was just a nonsense amalgamation of like Commando and Predator and Rambo made for like $10 in like the California forest. It was wonderful and very gory because all of that $10 was spent on home supplies to get
and just great hair, great mullets all around.
Absolutely. We also had Adam Mosher also upgrade from $5 to $10. So thanks to you folks. Can't wait to see you guys at the end of the month for the screening. I'm not sure what it is. Going to be fun. Oh, we also had Jake upgrade. Wow. Sorry, I should have put this all aside ahead of time. We had lots of people upgrade. The virtual screenings, they're getting a little bit more popular. You might want to think about it. Yeah, they're fun. We also had Shane Dugan sign up, who actually signed up for an entire year of the show. So thank you to Shane. We had Jonathan Collins sign up, Dillard's Department, Anna Simmons, Uberlearn Gizbar. I'm sorry, dude. Jason Koski, Chase Terry, Carlos Ramirez, who signed up at $10 a month and will also be joining for the virtual screening, David Thompson, and David Thompson. And that is everyone who signed up. So thanks so much to all of you folks. Hope you are enjoying the bonus episodes. Thank you so much for the support.
Yeah.
That is the one plug. The other plug for the week, as always, is Apple Podcasts. If you guys are listening on Apple Podcasts, and I see the stats, I know that you are. Scroll down to the very bottom right now. Give us a good old rating and review down there. Helps us climb the ranks at iTunes and find new listeners. Oh, and before I forget, also, we have to add something new to the intro here. Spotify. I've been informed you can now rate us on Spotify. So that's not that part of the segment, intro segment, doesn't just apply to Apple Podcast users anymore. I will now be spying on the Spotify stats and also glaring at all of you people. So if you haven't rated us on Spotify, you can do that now. And I did see that a lot of people had already done it, which, warmed my heart a little bit. So thanks to the Spotify listeners ahead of time. If you are a Spotify listener and you didn't know you could do that, do it up. Give us a good old rating and review over there. That's the one plug. The other plug, last plug of the week, as always, is merch. If you guys like the poster art that based out of Toronto horror artist Trevor Henderson did for the show, you can get that put on basically anything that you can think of. A notebook, a pillow, a hoodie. You can just get a poster to frame on the wall if you'd like. That's what Jamie and I have done.
Yeah.
And we've had lots of people
great.
buy everything. We've had people buy pens. If you whatever you can think of, you can get our art on it. So link to that is in the description. Is also at sleazoidspodcast.com for those that are interested in that. But yes, that is your intro. Welcome back to another week. As always, I am your host, Josh Lewis, and joining me also, as always, is my co-host,
Jamie Miller. Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome. I think 2 weeks ago would have been the last time you folks would have heard from us, and we would have had special guest Andrew Law, also known as Illy Boshin from the Bunta Vista podcast, on making his 5th or 6th appearance on the show. Damn. The reigning champ, holding the belt over his head, hooting and hollering. And he brought with him a very bug double feature. We talked 1986 David Cronenberg, The Flies. We worked our way around it. We covered like 9 David Cronenberg films somehow before talking about what is, his most commercially and critically successful film, The Fly. So we had a lot of fun breaking that down with Andrew, and we paired it with Saul Bass's Phase 4, where we learned to accept our new ant overlords in a movie that has the premise of like an old sci-fi B movie about intelligent ants coming to war with us, but done in a little bit more of a psychedelic 2001 inspired sci-fi style. So we had a lot of fun talking about post-human science fiction societies. And if you haven't heard that episode, it's over on the main feed. Go check it out. Anyone can listen to it. But then last week, for the bonus listeners over on the Patreon exclusively, we had a very a double feature we don't really need to explain too deeply. The Hitchhiker.
Titles.
The Hitchhiker from 1953, directed by Ida Lupino. Considered one of the first mainstream noirs directed by a woman, and it's a very sweaty kidnapping thriller about a hitchhiker taking 2 guys captive in their car and making them drive him to Mexico. And we paired it with 1986's The Hitcher, directed by Robert Harmon, with Rutger Hauer as the hitchhiker. And yeah, just an absolutely evil vibes film about is he some sort of angel of death, or is he mankind's own capacity for evil, or is he, as the screenplay writer of Near Dark and Blue Steel suggests, just a crazy serial killer on the road? We'll never know for sure, but Rutger Hauer is wild in that film. And 2 very interesting films about the possibility of our cars and our roads not being places of freedom and liberation, but instead very, very scary, claustrophobic places. So if you haven't heard that episode, patreon.com/Sleazoids podcast. That was last week's bonus episode. But moving on to this week, we have a very special returning guest who I've been trying to get back on the show for a little while, because we had him on pretty early on. I don't think it was in the first year, but it was pretpretty early, I think, into the second year was the last time we had him. And it was actually the episode that we did that we had Alex Winter tweet out the show. So maybe he and it was when they were on the set for Bill and Ted 3. So for all we know, he showed it to Keanu. We will find that out later. But joining us this week, he is an artist. He is a poster. He is a streamer. He is a fellow student of Trash Cinema Arts. Many of you will know him by his Twitter handle Bakun, but that guest is Oliver Leach. Oliver, how you doing?
Howdy, boys. I'm doing okay. Great to be back.
Yeah, welcome back. I couldn't believe it had been so long when I finally asked you, but the circumstances had arisen, and we had to kind of bump your episode up a little bit.
It feels like a month ago.
Exactly.
That's a great double feature you guys had on the Patreon. Those are a couple of good ones. I just watched that Hitchhiker. That is a sweaty movie. You are correct.
Yeah, no, wonderful and very matter of fact, which we thought was really interesting too. Like not overly sensationalized, like very just what really happened to those 2 dudes. But the way visually that you focus on the power that gun brings him and how terrified the other characters are and the emasculation they feel in its presence. It's very, very well done.
Well, you guys have been watching some like cool, smart movies, and I'm here to dumb this shit right down.
No, this is yes. What we need. This is what you have to understand is, we try to go back and forth as much as possible between movies we need to actually talk about for 2.5 hours because there's lots of subtext, and then every once in a while we got to just go dumpster diving. So we are very glad about the double feature you brought with you this week. But what is it, Oliver?
David Decatow, the king of the dumpster.
Yes, he is.
He's got a crown that's a little dumpster.
I went dumpster diving myself this afternoon with David, so it was fun.
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah. So Oliver, what two films have you brought with you this week, and why did you pair these two together?
So I'm back here in Texas, kind of driving around shooting slides, and came back to visit my folks. And I was digging through my old comic books, to find something to read while I was, smoking illegal marijuana. And came across the old Alan Moore, Tom Strong comics and Planetary, which both are sort of parodies, are based on the old 30s pulp guy, Doc Savage. And I remembered the sort of bizarre film that was a massive failure called Doc Savage, A Man of Bronze. And I thought, hell, I could go back and watch that one again. And then I was trying to come up with something like what could go with that, this sort of proto superhero thing, kind of the rise of the there wouldn't be Superman, there wouldn't be Marvel Comics without Doc Savage in a way. Mm-hmm. And so I really arbitrarily, I just took another movie with Doctor in the title. And I chose David Decatow's Dr. Alien, which is the classic kind of nerd to cool kid journey. But he grows a little pecker out of the top of his head in this one. that winks at ladies, and it makes any lady who looks at them incredibly horny.
Instantly ready to go.
Instantly. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm very these are very pulpy fictional doctors, but they couldn't be more different. You have like a TV serial for children, and then you have what borders on like softcore sexploitation.
Yeah, I mean, it's got Dr. Alien has got Linnea Quigley in it. It's of course, right. of course it does.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to jump into this and go dumpster diving with you today. Let's start off here with Doc Savage, the Man of Bronze.
The age of the world. Below, in the Valley of the Vanished, live the Quetzalcoatls. There is no way down.
It's time to proceed. Stay in your seat and hope you'll beat these evil foes.
All right, we are talking Doc Savage, the Man of Bronze, the 1975 American action. It says action film here, but I guess directed by Michael Anderson and based on, as Oliver mentioned, the pulp magazine comic hero Doc Savage.
There's probably 8.5 minutes action, sure.
Yeah, Alan Moore called this an adventure movie.
An adventure, action adventure. That sounds about right.
Because it's got the whole globe-trotting thing. It's a group of guys trying to find a mystery in some long-lost civilization. It's definitely more adventure than action.
It is a whole bunch of guys.
Yeah, very misfit-like. I mean, they make no sense almost.
So first you have Doc Savage, who was trained by his father, I think either in the jungle or up in the North Pole to be...
The Arctic Circle, I believe.
Oh, yeah. To be the world's apex human in every way.
Yeah, he's basically the most interesting man in the world from those Dos Equis commercials. He's shown studying in his library and then working on chemistry and then doing mathematics.
Yeah, he was considered a proto, obviously, to literal superheroes like Superman. He was right. But his superpowers were just being a really good doctor and a scientist and an adventurer and a detective.
American all around.
Yeah.
Alan Moore called him a science hero, and that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
It shows him
with
machining, machining metalwork, and he's building a tiny rocket which he uses to catch a fish.
Yeah.
He's meditating basically naked in the snow at one point.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
and
just
he can hear psychic vibrations of his friends being in trouble or people talking about him from New York.
Yeah.
From anywhere on the planet.
Yeah. And even
and the basic premise literally of this pulp comic was that his father assembled a team of scientists to essentially pain and gain his body and mind into, you know, giving him this strength and endurance and photographic memory and like martial arts skills. And also he's like a master of disguise apparently in a lot of the actual everything. Like pulp stories. The head writer from the original run in the 1930s described him as a combo of Sherlock Holmes, Tarzan, and Abraham Lincoln. That's where you get like that American goodness and Christliness that he spreads around the globe.
Yes, he cares about justice and fairness, and he's going to bring it to the world.
Yeah, so apparently this pulp run was very, very popular in the 1930s and the 1940s, and the reason it took so long.
My grandfather, I remember, you know, had collected volumes of it. He loved it when he was a kid.
Nice.
Yeah, but it took them a really long time to actually get anything beyond like kind of like a radio show out of him, or you know. But apparently in like the late 60s, early 70s, they did like a massive paperback reprint of all of the original pulp runs that they did in the magazines. And it really blew up. So by the time they hit like the early to mid 70s, they were like, man, it might be time to finally like adapt this thing. So they got together legendary science fiction producer George Pal, well known most especially for his H.G. Wells adaptations of War of the Worlds and The Time Machine. And I think it ran through a couple of different directors and things were kind of falling apart and they were being stripped of money a little bit as the project kind of went on. But they eventually landed on Michael Anderson to direct this, who is a British film director who is specialized in, you know, kind of adventure genre pulp. Is in the 50s he did things like Around the World in 80 Days, which I honestly remember, despite, you know, it winning him Best Picture, I remember it being a pretty excruciating 3-hour like travelogue film.
Oh, is it? Yeah, I haven't seen it.
It's not great.
Yeah, he did, but he also did like, you know, World War II films like The Dam Busters, which is not one of the more memorable ones either. But in the 70s, it was interesting. He expanded, I thought, into like weirder films. He got a lot of attention for doing Logan's Run, which again, not like the best sci-fi film, but very influential one in terms of like science fiction, dystopia, conspiracy films where like the characters have to wake up from the fantasy world that they're in. Like almost every movie you've seen with that premise basically copies the structure of Logan's Run in a Mills. But he also did the movie Orca.
To go shoot some slides around Grand Prairie at Grapevine Mills Outlet Mall, which is what they turned the Logan's Run kind of sets into.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We'll send us those photos.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So he did Logan's Run. He did a movie called Orca, the Killer Whale with Richard Harris and Charlotte Rampling.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I understand it's a
Orca rules. Yeah. It's like Jaws. Oh, yeah. Like this, like you get to see a killer whale blow up an oil refinery.
That does sound sick.
And then do like celebratory, like, you know, spouting, and yeah, it's great.
I was really taken by the tagline for it, which was that this idea of the killer whale is hunting down mankind because they killed his lifetime mate. And
they killed his wife who was pregnant, and so the killer whale is fucking pissed off and hunting these people down. It's a revenge movie.
Yeah, literally the tagline was that like he's relentless and he has terrible vengeance across seas, across time, across all obstacles.
That tagline is not lying, dude.
Yeah.
that whale gets fucking pissed.
I might watch that soon.
No, Orca rules. Yeah. I forgot he did that. No, Orca's, much better than Ducks.
Well, yeah, this is what's interesting is that like this was kind of like a respectable British filmmaker in a way who was trying to make these kinds of films. But in the 70s, he really just started being like, yeah, whatever. You know, instead of doing serious spy adaptations, or I think he literally tried to adapt 1984 as well, sometime in the 60s, I think. He just decided he was going to go full pulp mode.
I mean, it's pulp, but like what pushes the film to like have a really kind of insane feel to it to me is The fact that they ran out of money to do a soundtrack or a score, so they just got John Philip Sousa music and changed the words.
Is that what
about Doc Savage and his friends?
Is that what his theme music is? It's like a cover, basically.
No, it's all John Philip Sousa music.
Oh, okay, and then they added the lyrics to it.
Oh yeah, and they had the lyrics about how Doc Savage is such a cool guy.
Yeah, he's got the biggest brain in all the world, and
oh yeah,
I read the whole thing after I watched the movie. It was the lyrics are very funny. I would highly recommend anyone to just look up the theme song.
He's a friend to all mankind.
Basically.
He's pure of heart and mind.
Yeah,
he will make crime
Baron
disappear.
Munchausen, he has his superpowered manservants.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Five
You
of them
got
with
Ham.
each individual skills. They're masters of their classes.
And it's kind of weird, kind of very 1930s kind of mega skills. Like you have the master engineer, like he builds bridges. He punches people.
The electrician, I believe.
Yeah, Long Tom the electrician.
Yeah, he just has a really good lawyer, like a Harvard lawyer. Is just
who also has this like he's got this poking stick.
He's got a sword cane that
but it
has an anesthetic on it.
People.
Yeah, and it kind of makes them feel, it seems really good, and then they pass out. Like, they all pass out with smiles on their faces, so I wasn't sure if it was like...
So you don't feel bad about him stabbing them, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Because they can't kill people. That's the whole thing, right? They're the good guys.
The good guys.
They're upright.
Yeah.
They're justice boys. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, these are the original G.I. Joe guys.
They don't drink or smoke. They all order individual sodas. They're like root beer, Coke. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And
they're straight edge.
Most fascinating of the five is the scientist, the chemist, who's a big fat guy who looks. It was like in the books he said he looks like an orangutan, but he's just kind of a big, like fat Scottish looking guy
with the
who carries a little pig. Yeah, yeah. Who has a tiny baby pig he carries around everywhere, and the pig's name is Habeas Corpus.
Yes, and he saves the day a couple times, actually, that pig.
Yeah, the pig's pretty important.
Yeah, he's essential to making them escape in the finale. Without that pig, the world would have been a worse off place.
I mean,
yeah, this movie is very interesting because it is just one of, like, it is an attempt before Spielberg and before George Lucas, an attempt to bring back the pulpy 30s kids serials.
Yeah, this is
pre
Richard Donner Superman. This is pre all of that.
And what's interesting too is that they have a strange balance between like the sincerity of Doc Savage and the campiness of everything else. And so at times you're unsure if they're like trying to make fun of Doc Savage a little bit, or if they're but then they'll still give him the big zoom in and the like twinkle in his eye and a big speech about justice before they go off into the plane and stuff. So there's a lot of sincerity balanced out with just incredible camp, like just insane, ridiculous stuff that doesn't really connect too well to what Doc Savage is doing and what I guess Ron Eli is doing.
Yeah, this is definitely very
like at times I was reminded of almost Austin Powers at times. Like I'm like there's literally a scene in this movie where the bad guys start laughing and it goes on for way too long and you're like, this is exactly the joke in Austin Powers, but I can't tell if they think it's funny or if they think like there's something more evil afoot here.
Yeah, it's interesting. For me, the closest comparison to something that we've covered on the podcast was obviously Flash Gordon.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The lead is the massive blonde husk.
Yeah.
The very much where you can't tell what it's doing as a budgetary limitation or what it is doing as an intentional joke. Sometimes, it doesn't quite have the elaborate sets and vibrant colors and like psychedelic qualities that film has. Because when we covered that, we talked about like literally the guy who did the production design for Sallow, like did the production design for Flash Gordon.
Yeah,
and
which is crazy.
you have Max von Sydow and Timothy Dalton in that movie. You don't really have performances on that level going on here. You don't have crazy sex princesses or
I do like
nothing
Ron
really
Eli,
cool
though.
happens. It's all in room. Nothing that cool happens at all in it. I
had fun with this, and maybe I had more fun than you guys did with this one. I feel like
I had fun with it. It's just fucking silly. Yeah.
Oh, it is. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, and even, the whole thing, the way it views like this American hero, it has all the white savior complex, and it does have some pretty bad, like, stereotypical stuff that it keeps going back to.
Yeah, it's got a lot of guys in brown face.
Right. But I
it
do
starts
find
off
most
with
of it.
Dr. Savage
go
going
ahead.
up to a skyscraper, correct? And
Right.
being hunted by a sniper who's a guy in brown
Mayan
face.
sniper.
A Mayan sniper. There's just a white
Which
guy
I'm
painted brown.
Absolutely. There's a lot of those around.
Yeah.
You got to watch out for them.
It's a problem.
Whose fingers are bloody from climbing up a skyscraper with his hands, so he can snipe him from next door.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is after he returns back from his igloo of solitude, where he has been meditating and studying astronomy and just being an all-around great guy.
Yes, that Superman took it from Doc Savage.
Yeah,
and then that's also, then you're introduced to his crew, and then that's where we get into the kind of the sniper situation, because he also learns of his dad that passed away, which kind of sets off the adventure a little bit.
Yeah, he died from a rare tropical disease in a place called Hidalgo, which automatically starts setting off little alarms in his head. He's like, that seems suspicious. That doesn't seem right. And as he's about to open his
supernatural, superhuman deductive ability.
Yes.
To determine that something's fishy about this situation.
That's right.
I do like some of the like totally unnecessary gadgets that he has, like the one where
like the clock safe.
Yeah, where it's like it's watch. Cool. Like it's like that's sick, man, that you can do that, but you could also easily walk 10 feet and just use the safe.
Like there was definitely nothing faster about doing it on his watch.
I like also the hyper specific gadgets, like when the safe is on fire eventually because they're trying to destroy the documents or whatever, and they have these like little snowballs that are meant to be extinguisher balls, and it's just so hyper specific that it does very much remind you of like if you've seen the 60s Batman and he has like shark repellent, and you're like, wow, that seems incredibly specific to have on your gadget belt,
And they're like, they're little globes, and they make like blorp sounds when he throws them.
And when the sniper tries to shoot him with the elephant rifle and misses, there's a part where they go afterward where they go, man, it's a really good job he has those windows that make all of us look like we are 5 feet away from where we actually are, like a giant optical illusion. And you're like, could you not just like put like a two-way mirror, or like what is the
they
like
already, the funny thing is that later on they show that they have like these very lightweight but very efficient bulletproof vests, and it's like, well, you couldn't apply that to like whatever technology to the glass that you had in your Ultra HQ in the Empire State Building.
Well, then they couldn't see through it, huh?
There it is.
Yeah, and it's the kind of
Doc Savage.
It's the kind of movie where characters are, talking about how super credopolis they are and how they got big old goose eggs on their head, and like, it's very for me it was interesting because
I'm becoming magnum anomalous.
Yeah,
that's like most of the movie right there.
Yeah, like for me, I did find that there was some bizarre charm to come out of this, because it's very clear that they went back to the original pulp stories and they literally stole the language and they stole the lines like straight from it. From what I understand, this was like a very deliberate and
the speech
pretty
he gives, the big code.
Big speech and everything. Like it's a very deliberately sort of like faithful throwback to the actual material itself, combining a bunch of different stories, like one called The Green Death and Mystery on the Sea or something like that. Like they combined a bunch of really, and obviously the Man of Bronze, the original.
I got the code right here.
Oh, okay.
So
awesome.
They're about to get on a plane, him and his boys, to go to Hidalgo to find out what happened with his papa. And he stops and he turns to the man and he says, I'm going to make the oath.
Big close up.
And he says, let me strive.
I love how he has to stop the movie dead in its tracks, though, to be like, just so we know, before the movie continues, it's time for the oath.
Let me see here. Let me strive every moment of my life to make myself better and better to the best of my ability, that all may profit by it. That's weird. Let me take what comes with a smile without loss of courage. Sure, let me do all right to all and wrong no man. Let me be considerate of my country, of my fellow citizens, and of my associates in everything I say and do. And after he finishes the oath, there's applause on the soundtrack, not from the men. And it continues as the plane flies.
Yeah, it's so funny because you can see the five guys. The what are they called again? They're like the
Fabulous Five.
The Fabulous Five, and they're clapping, but you hear an entire audience of applause. So it's just like,
well, that's the spirit of America.
That's what it is. Exactly. I salute it after, honestly.
Yeah, so there is some charm to just how they have just basically recreated something that is so out of fashion with 1975. Like, this is around the time that we were getting, new Hollywood. You had these new paranoid, conspiracy kind of thrillers coming out. You had these kinds of films that were, being, responding to, the civil rights era and things like the Vietnam War.
Not that long after, like, The Conversation,
Right. Like this is such an deliberately uncool movie, and as a result, it basically bombed. Nobody liked it when it came out. I mean, also the leading guy was cast from being a Tarzan TV show, right?
I mean, 20 years later, they tried it again with The Shadow. It didn't work. People don't want the shit. It rules, though. The Shadow's pretty great.
I think there was. I even read a funny review. It was just on the wiki where they were like, Ron Eli doesn't even take off his shirt in this, a waist or something like that, which I thought was very funny.
He does though. At the very end, he gets his shirt ripped off, and there's like a swell of orchestral music.
That guy fell asleep.
It progressively gets torn off.
Well, and there's like in the 70s reissues, there's a very famous painting that they did that became the kind of iconic Doc Savage look. And he finally sort of replicates that look in the final couple of seconds when the villain, Dr. Sees, because he's a sea captain.
It's very clever when you think about it.
Oh, it's fucking genius.
Because he lives on a boat.
That's right.
Yes.
And
there was something that was like, again, so like this was very, very thoroughly rejected at the time. Critics called it dopey and clumsy. It was a huge box office bomb. There was one note that I found very adorable. The one person who seemed to like it was the widow, Norma, of the original writer Dent, who quote her quote leaving the film was, I saw the movie 3 times that day, and I cried when I heard Ron Eli deliver the Doc Savage code. He said it as he meant every word of it, and it was wonderful.
Yes. And he does. So, the thing is, too, like with Ron Eli, whether or not, the whole thing works for you, Ron Eli is really giving it, I think, in this. He does do a good job with the whole like boring, charming adventurer man, because he has to play a very like generic hero in a sense. It's like pretty, it's the prototype for Superman. So it is going to come off, especially to us, incredibly just generic and probably a little bit boring. But I do like his sincerity as he plays this part. He's always got
he's not a problem. I actually think that. I definitely think that he could work in a movie that was
more suited to what he was doing.
That would kind of play up around him, because unfortunately for me, I think if you're going to play that character straight, that the filmmaking needs to be a little bit more animated. And for me, that was kind of my issue.
Because then you can have like his balance, like he's more grounded, but then everything else is crazy. Where they do a few things that are kind of ridiculous that I did appreciate and enjoy. Like I like the random the one dude that's working with Captain C's, and he has like a giant king size baby crib and stuff. Yeah. Like I think that stuff is very fun. But it needed a little bit more. I also
like the murderous electric snake assassins. Who just like appear randomly.
Yeah. And it just needed it does need a little more of that, because because it doesn't have as much as it needs, it does come off as that thing I was talking about earlier, where is this parody? Is this sincere? I can't quite tell how much of this was supposed to be me laughing at it and not laughing at it.
It's this kind of goofy, really sincere comic booky premise that's kind of portrayed very flatly.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
Absolutely. That was the main issue for me. Is again, there's a lot of bizarre charm to this that comes from just very sincerely
like
adapting
material,
old
mostly,
material
yeah.
like this. Yeah, it all comes from the source material. And
most of the movie is like a bunch of guys in a room going, yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly it. I just think that, you know, like it has the righteous speechifying, it has the gadgets, it has the mustache twirling villains, it has some very ridiculous things that if you describe them to other people, they're like, wow, that sounds like the most fun movie you've ever described. But if you haven't seen it, the style for me was just done in just that deliberately kind of lazy TV camp way that like where it's so much like standard visual coverage.
Imagine a boiling lake of molten gold. Sounds pretty cool, right? What if it was like just a big kind of a beige mud pit?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so I was hoping for some like legit like animated Looney Tunes mania or something, but once they start doing the investigation, like once they actually start globetrotting and investigating his father's death after this brief sort of assassination sequence, which I will say kind of has some of the most impressive action is literally, and I'm not sure if they burned all the money in the first 10 minutes, but like him traveling from his igloo to New York. And did they actually? Because like the whole thing with like him getting in the helicopter and like the dude actually like falling off the side of the building and them having the huge lights from, you know, all the skyscrapers on him and stuff. I was like, that's it's not the best thing. It's still chintzy looking, but
they ran out of money and they had to kind of. So the ending had to all go is they kind of had to make do, I think.
Yeah, and they went ludicrously over budget on it too. Apparently, it did go up to it was supposed to be like $2 million, and they went up to $5 million on it, and they just still kept running out of money somehow. So this might just be producer mismanagement happening on the production of Doc Savage 1975.
Yeah, very possible. I do like the other action set piece that they do with the boat. I didn't think that one was too bad. They have a couple gadgets that they do. Like I like the one scientist uses a lighter that ends up being like a laser gun of some kind, and
the electrician.
Yeah, and then he starts to actually electrocute people, and that's where the bulletproof vest comes into play, and they have like a oxygen thing attached to their stomach. So I did like the sequence of gadgets that they were showing to show their escape, and that is also the scene where they each order like root beer and Coke, and it's established that Doc Savage and the boys are completely straight edge because they are the heroes that we need.
And Captain C is like, I'm glad you enjoyed your dinner because it was your last.
Yeah, just
all the waiters start pulling out guns.
yeah, exactly. And it turns into a very like the only thing that's missing from what would turn it into a Batman thing is the pows and the kaplows and all of that. They don't have that, but
it's really could have used some kaplows.
Yeah,
that's the one thing I was gonna say is that the disappointing that is definitely one of the more inventive action scenes in the film, and one of the issues too for me was just that again it was shot in like the way that you would shoot like TV action of like a guy just like walking up and just like punching another guy.
That was like how they shot Walker, Texas Ranger.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's the exact same. Just like they put the camera down and the big actor walks over to the henchman who's ready to take a hit, and he kind of you can kind of see him miss.
Yeah, we were
sometimes.
watching Sammo Hung and martial law beat up a wife beat or something.
Yeah, I will say this definitely feels more like a big pilot that they did for something that would eventually become like more 30-minute episodes, and they were like, let's just do this big introduction pilot for everybody to get everyone excited.
Tease a sequel.
Yes, and they do that. They do the whole like it's going to be this episodic thing that keeps happening, case after case.
Here's the origin.
So it does kind of have that TV element a little bit. Yeah.
I'm still not giving up hope. There still might be a Doc Savage Man.
I hope they do. It'd be really difficult to do in this day and age. I imagine it would be, and it was hard enough to do in the 70s. I guess it wasn't received well.
Okay, let's see. Josh Gad is the chemist. All right, Josh Gad is the
yes.
Sebastian Stan as the lawyer.
Oh man.
Yeah.
All right. Giovanni Ribisi as the electrician.
We're
cooking
Doc?
now.
Who plays Doc? Like who is our golden god?
Army Hammer. There we go.
Yeah, there it is. Actually,
we're gonna bring him out of cancellation.
Yeah, you absolutely nailed it.
With Doc Savage 2, the late sequel.
You nailed the Lone Ranger.
Death,
you gotta admit.
Death on the Nile.
Oh Jesus!
And then you need the legacy sequel Force Awakens treatment, where everyone has a lot of reverence for like the pig, and they give him a funeral, and like that kind of deal.
It gets really dark. Yeah. There's like a tragic second episode in the trilogy. Yeah. Oh man, come on, guys, we need it.
Yeah. So
anyway.
it is funny that this basically does move between being a very campy, legitimate TV show version of this with all of the kind of filmmaking laziness that kind of comes with that. But also that's also the source of its charm. So that's where you're kind of, for me, I kind of walked on that line
it'll be
totally
for people.
50-50 shot of like a joke is going to land for you because the material is just silly enough and it's being done sincerely enough.
The flatness of it and this, what it is and what it tried to be really prefigures a lot of the Marvel, to be honest. Kind of the Russo Brothers
the way
stuff.
that they'll just pad out a scene with like seemingly endless improvising comedic beats about how like the fat guy is silly or like the nerdy guy pulls out another word out of his thesaurus.
Oh yeah.
This story is not feature length, and they find ways to make these scenes into a feature length movie. And so for me, there were elements where I just started to get a little irritated, and it started reminding me more of like Beastmaster and Masters of the Universe more than it did things like even Flash Gordon, which on some level I think is doing camp a little bit more in a more a more ambitious way, even though that has a lot of stuff.
Brian Blessed in it,
Yeah.
Yeah, I could
just
definitely
flying
agree.
on eagle wings and just screaming every line. It's so dope.
Yeah, for me, it just didn't, it has a lot of chintzy slapstick humor. It never really got into that realm of what I felt like was straight up parody or spoof because it doesn't do enough aesthetic recreation behind the camera. Like I was almost expecting some like Dante-isms or something. But I mean, I guess it was also 1975 and no one else had been doing material like this yet. It did come pretty early.
Like I said, with that, like there was a couple jokes that I felt I've seen before, and I'm not sure if I've seen them. Like most of the time, I've seen it from like the 80s, 90s. Like the one I already referenced was the long laughter, which was very much from
villains
Austin
just
Powers.
Laughing, and you're like, the scene should have cut away like 30 seconds ago.
Yeah,
but
and
the
with
villains
this,
are
you're
still
not quite
just
sure
going.
if it's actually parody or not, but it still made me laugh, and it worked. And if not, it definitely set up Mike Myers for that joke or something like that. And then there was another one. I lost my train of thought there. Yeah, it'll come back to me. You guys can go.
Yeah, that just colored it a lot for when it actually jumped, because the intro I was mostly intrigued. Like there was a decent amount of clearly money and style put into it, and it was very deliberately being silly and sincere with the way that it was adapting the material. But then as soon as they just started clearly getting into where they were running out of money and they were going over to the uncontacted Mayan civilization that his dad was working with very righteously, not exploiting them. The movie has to let you know that like 7 times that his father was a good guy who was had a good relationship with these people versus
so
the
now
villain
it's Captain
who is
C's who is exploiting them and making them slaves. Yeah.
Yes,
he is so evil.
Yeah.
Before it was
and for
purely
me, this whole investigation stuff of people just kind of sitting around in rooms or kind of like sitting around the yacht and, going through the expository scenes where the local girl who worked with his dad is like, I'm a local native girl and your dad really was the best, Doc. Mm-hmm. And now also I'm in love with you.
I guess I like that because it's forcing upon itself like him to be this perfect hero, and even if the movie wasn't working that way, the fact that the movie had to just keep forcing it on him, I thought was honestly entertaining. I have to admit that I like this a little bit. Ironically, but I think that there's a lot here that's still very charming and funny in that way. Even if I agree with you that a lot of it is kind of probably unintentional.
I did like the Mona, you're a brick.
Little
I was like, what
punch
does
on
that
the chin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea what that means at all. That must be very
I'm not sure if that meant that she was supposed to be
did
strong.
they ever explain what the
she's a
green-
building block.
Probably.
Did they ever explain what the green laser snakes were? The green death, they called it?
I missed it if they did.
It was part of like their the Mayan culture or whatever. It was the thing that was on their chest, and I look. It was on Wikipedia. They said it was like called. Let me look it up real quick. It's called the Kukulkan, and it's some Mayan serpent. So I think that's what it was. I don't know if they went into extreme detail though.
Oh yeah, it's Kukulkan. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I remember that.
Interesting.
Sure, Doc Savage. All right.
Yeah, it's just a sure kind of thing.
And as they're uncovering this mystery, you can figure it out pretty fast that the very nefarious Captain C's and the local politicians in Hidalgo, where they are, who are just a giant like dictators who sit inside of baby cribs, just crying and screaming for most of the film. I do like the giant baby crib because that's just
really weird,
you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
when did the baby come out? That fucking horrific.
I needed more of that level of production design where it started to just make the world actually more cartoony in that way. But you do eventually just figure out that, you know, his dad was murdered for this land that he owns, which has a bunch of natives who work on it, who were basically like literally printing him money via gold, which is an important thing that's going to come back because because Captain C's is now exploiting these people because, you know, his father again was not exploiting them via this giant money printing machine they have found in Hidalgo. And he captures Doc and all of his friends and all of his nincompoops who are going on I do like their little Western mission briefly where they are like
and
all on
the
horseback
theme song
and
pops up.
Yeah, riding through the mountains to the theme song.
And yeah, anytime the theme song pops up, it's such an abrasive song. It's like the lyrics are, you know, just jerking off Doc Savage. It's very loud and just
it's
like
it's
choir.
insane marching band parade music.
Yeah, and
yeah,
it's
marching band parades, right?
So anytime it pops up, it really made me laugh because of just how like aggressive it is about Doc Savage. But anyway,
yeah, John Philip Sousa music is not subtle. It doesn't slip in there.
No, they're cutting their way through the jungles and riding across western horizons, and they are going to, you know, the music is like Doc's father is dead, and they must learn why he had to die before his time, and you know, their hearts are filled with pride.
What's happening in the lyrics, just verbatim. It's so funny.
Yeah, now Doc made a vow. That helps, so let us recall it now. And then in the song, they literally like repeat the vow and the oath of, you know, how he's going to spread American goodness around the globe.
I'd like a child from now to see this movie and see what they make of it. See if they're able to sit through this full film.
Yeah, I'm gonna show like my 8-year-old cousin. Yeah, the next time I see him at Christmas or something, be like, "What do you think of this? What kind of vibes you get?"
Is this guy as cool as Spider-Man?
Yeah, is he cool? Is this basically your Superman now?
Yeah, and that was it for me. Is, you know, the way that they extended it out with like jokes aimed at children, which is obviously, you know, it's a children's movie, so partially, it's also kind of bloody. I was surprised at how bloody it was if they were trying to make it a children's movie.
It's more like PG-13, I would say.
Yeah.
Overall,
it's a movie for like stupid adults.
yeah, like me.
Yeah, I love it.
But the way that this sort of, I love how we haven't even been able to really go through it because it's so basic. Like, again, Doc, he's hunting down his dad. He goes to Hidalgo. They tell him that his dad disappeared in like near an uncontacted Mayan tribe. He goes there. He finds out that the villain killed his dad to steal his land, and now he's going to fight for it.
Then he fights for it, and he puts the villain in a headlock.
And it takes like an hour and 45 minutes to tell that story. I was kind of blown away by how much they drag it out with, like, you know, there are some moments that are kind of funny with like, Doc always making time for 2 hours of exercise every single day, no matter what. And all the maids are like staring at him being like, ooh. But then they just use that as like, to be like, why don't you do that?
Like the final
chemist
confrontation is Doc Savage running up behind the bad guy and putting him in a headlock and saying, knock it off.
Yeah. Yes. And also the lawyer being held at gunpoint saying, I'm a lawyer. I'll sue you.
I personally liked the and this was that makes sense. This was the other joke I couldn't think of earlier. The different variations of fighting. Although I don't think it was incredibly paced, I did like the joke, and it was one of the earliest times I've seen that joke, because I've seen it a couple times in the 80s and the 90s. But I did kind of appreciate it, like when Captain C's just starts going into sumo position. And then they start hitting each other with like bamboo sticks, and then they turn to fisticuffs, and then like
the karate chopping.
Yeah, and the actual like names of each style pops up on the screen for you to read just randomly. Like it I would say it's a little.
And they're obviously doing it insanely badly.
Yes, yeah, really badly. So I kind of liked that as well, just as a joke. But most of them, I will say, like, I agree. I think there needed to be like 10, 15 minutes cut from the more exposition scenes, because it's already so simple that you don't need all of this explanation. I understand that they're also trying to make this they're introducing Doc Savage to the masses in the film world, so they're just trying to get all of the check marks of his story.
Well, and you need to watch his genius mind at play as he's ingesting this information and doing. There is a brief moment where he tries to go like Sherlock Holmes, where he's just like, suspicious, and it's like, it's obviously just like, yeah, of course, yes, go look into that. He does big martial arts sequence with Captain C. And
I read the thing, like, I think it was on the wiki, like from the guy who wrote the original stories, and he had no regard for Doc Savage after the fact. And it's like he had a formula that he wrote the stories on of Doc getting in and out of trouble every time. He's like, I just did this bullshit for money.
Well, yeah, it's definitely one of those like episodic things that's built so that Doc Savage never has anything really bad happen to him. He's always going to save the day. There's going to be another case that happens afterwards. It's
immediately after.
Yeah, it's this everlasting thing.
Very briefly, I do like that they get him onto the yacht. That Captain C tricks him onto the yacht with just hot women. Like that's all it takes, is they're just like, yeah, okay, we'll go onto the yacht, and then that's when they do the huge fight with punching through chairs and shock taser canes.
Doc gets all the babes, but he likes to get his boys some action too.
Yeah, everyone has flaws, except for Doc Savage.
Not Doc Savage, no.
Yeah, and I do want to say that the actual climactic and sort of like ending sequence to this, it's not good, but it blew my mind, and it made me imagine another movie where they kind of like leaned into this element of it, because once again, Doc he beats up all the bad guys who are trying to use his dad's land and exploit all the natives as slaves the bad way. He beats them, and then you would think that he's going to like give the land back to them or something like that. That's what it looks
like. The rhythm tells you that's exactly what's going to happen.
Nope.
Yeah, and like literally there's a part where like the greedy men get comeuppance from like Mother Nature seeking revenge and everything like that. Like it's very on the nose.
Like he gets splashed by molten gold and becomes a statue of gold as
yes,
the ultimate sign of hubris.
Yeah,
Doc Savage says, "Thank you for this infinite amount of money."
Yes, he literally says that this is like limitless money.
Yes, so that he can spread justice to the world, because he's the all-American golden god hero. Yeah, that's what it is.
he takes back his dad's land.
And you
presumably all the
think,
natives are still going to work on it, and they're going to spend all of the money to continue spreading his American Christly goodness around the world.
And
then
you got to remember, it's like pulp stories coming out during the Depression. The idea of you having unlimited money was just like the
ultimate fantasy.
Yeah. Yeah, thank God for Doc
he also
Savage.
kisses the native girl who he said that he couldn't get into a relationship with, and then they don't kill the bad guy because he's against killing. But he takes him
fucked up.
Yeah, he takes him to a rehabilitation center where he Clockwork Orange style reprograms and lobotomize. Like literally, there's a scene of him lobotomizing him into behaving
from China. He does quote
unquote acupuncture.
Long studying in China.
It says acupuncture, but he's fucking drilling those
yeah. And he does it to turn him into a respectable, civilized member of society. And then it ends on him later, sort of fast forward, where he sees his arch nemesis now working for the Salvation Army.
Bandages on, around his head, being taught life skills. He's making a mandolin on a wood turner.
Yeah.
And then he learns to sing Christmas carols for everybody, for the public.
And Doc Savage passes him by with an armful of Christmas presents because he's a good Christian boy.
That's right.
And he goes up and he puts his presents under the tree while his fucking 45 Victrola-powered answering machine tells him about problem on the other side of the planet. And he sprints out of there.
He's got to save the day again. And then they do, he kind of just rushes throughout the streets in his convertible, and then it does a big title spin and says Doc Savage will return in his next adventure, which is called, I can't remember right now. I have to look it up.
I took a still of it to laugh at it later. The arch enemy of watch for Doc Savage's next thrilling adventure, the arch enemy of evil.
There it is.
Co-starring Paul Gleason as Long Tom, Bill Lucking as Rennie, the engineer, Michael Miller as Monk the chemist, Eldon Quick as Johnny the nerd, and Daryl Zwerling as Ham, the lawyer, who in the book was
call him the nerd.
The lawyer guy was described as being the best dressed human man on earth.
I don't know if that's true.
His power is being well dressed.
Yeah. And that's Doc Savage, basically.
Yeah. This was a strange one. I won't lie, because the thing is almost every critique you can basically have of it.
This movie's completely forgotten. For kind of valid
we're here
reasons.
to make people remember.
Yeah, everyone go out and watch Doc Savage. It has under 1,000 logs on Letterboxd. We love when we do these episodes because no one has seen this film. Unfortunately, I won't be recommending it on the basis of it being a 3-star classic. For me, it was in the 2-star realm if we're pivoting over towards the reductive rating round for basically what I already said, which is that, again, this is someone... Everything that you're going to critique this film for is something that you could make the argument that it is doing deliberately. The fact that it's corny, the fact that it's cheap, that it has the tone of campy Adam West Batman and Saturday morning serials.
Interesting enough.
That's it for me. It doesn't have, for me, it's the filmmaking. It doesn't have the visual creativity or directorial flourishes to make that sing. Like Spielberg would obviously do his own homage to these kinds of stories with Raiders. Lucas would do it with Star Wars. And obviously you can't necessarily compare it on a budget level, although this isn't a cheap movie. Again, this still costs $5 million, which is only half of what Star Wars costs, which kind of blows your mind when you think about what they're doing here on a filmmaking level. When you think about they had $5 million, which is compared to the next film we're talking about, not even comparable.
Hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Massive budget.
But I will say there is some charm and there is some bizarre detail to it. I liked the remote control decoy plane dogfighting. I liked the dastardly maniacal international criminals constantly trying to kill him.
But there's enough kind of interesting bullshit that they kind of tried to do to make it maybe worth a look.
They did enough of the original material completely sincerely that there is stuff in here that's worth taking a look at.
If nothing else, the first maybe 15 minutes are fucking pretty great.
Yeah. Yeah, and for me, it's just after a while, the build, and by the time we hit the halfway point onward, it was starting to get the fact that the deliberate camp mixed with the lack of visual ambition did just start to get a little grating. Because I was thinking, like, man, Flash Gordon at this point was doing the crazy shit where they were sticking their arms into the trees and having like crazy fantasy sequences. And like at this point, we were like having the fifth joke about like the fat chemist being fat. To try to extend an exposition scene inside a room. So I was like, okay,
there's
at a certain point,
long kind of meal scenes. Yeah.
Yeah, like the way that they found to drag this stuff out just kind of blew my mind. But again, there's a giant oversized crib. There's the
it would have made a great
he's enjoying too much food, you might see, Jamie.
Something.
Those tacos look delicious, man.
Like boil this down to 25 minutes and you got gold.
Yeah, if this was a half-hour episode of TV and it did all of the best stuff that was in it, I think I would have had a lot more fun with this. But I've just found it strangely dull, which is a weird thing to say about a movie with some of the scenes that we described in it. Again, this ends with the hero taking back his father's literal money printing machine back from a bunch of slave Mayans, and then lobotomizing his arch enemy, Clockwork Orange style. Yes. So, you know, the fact that that's something that happens in this film, and I am describing that film as
gentle
kind of a
Mayans, you are no longer my slaves. You are now my forever employees.
Yes. I'm gonna use as a giant physical wallet
literally
to spread American goodness.
I mean, he's kind of what Jeff Bezos thinks he is, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah. The most interesting man in the world.
So I would argue that this is in like higher 2 territory for me. I had I could see having a fun time. I just don't know that I'll be revisiting this one and giving it another try.
Now, Dr. Alien, I did not get bored while watching it, I gotta say.
Man, you guys are gonna hate me. I still like Dr. Alien, but I got more of a kick out of this, to be honest. But
oh boy, we're gonna have to kapow wham.
We're gonna have
in
to
the
go,
next segment. But ratings for you guys.
We're gonna have to go sumo, karate, bamboo sticks, fisticuffs on this.
We're gonna gung fu. We're gonna go bojitsu.
Yeah. For me, it's a 3. I do agree that it's too padded out. It needs like a good 10, 15 minutes of those scenes just in a room, either to just have like more gadgets involved in those exposition scenes or just better jokes overall.
It's basically the template for the Russo brothers Marvel movies.
I like all the I do like all the gadgets that they show. I think that those were fun and very silly and hyper specific, and that's what I liked about them. It felt like they were designed to just do one thing in one very specific situation, and it was very funny to me. Like I said, there are a couple jokes that I weren't quite sure, specifically the laughing one, if it was supposed to be kind of funny or if they were supposed to be actually just this evil and this was supposed to be like an overlooming feeling I was supposed to have. I'm not quite sure here and there, but that is part of the charm for me.
An 8-year-old might find that genuinely evil.
Yeah, exactly. They'll at least, it's so like in your face about it that an 8-year-old would have to know that these are the bad guys. It's kind of like that. But I think that there's a charm to not knowing certain tones that they're trying to strike here and there, especially when you have Ron Eli just giving it his all with the sincere portrayal of Doc Savage. I do like the there's a couple of things that I liked visually, like the matte painting of their Eagle HQ I thought was kind of cool, and the fact the eye opens
most of
up.
the opening sequence looks nice.
So I think there's some things to have fun with here, but once again I do agree it's too padded out and it's not hitting every mark by any means, but I had a good time and it was fun to go back into this very very, very classic, almost at this point now, generic hero story. I thought that was a fun time to go back.
It's definitely a strange artifact, but it's an artifact of, that's become the dominant fucking culture.
Right.
So in the era of the Marvel movie, it's, it might be worth going back to revisit this weird shit. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
Like 1 to 5, we're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. strong 2.78.
Nice.
I like the specificity.
Maybe we can get you to a 2.95 someday.
Sure. If I can get some kind of like Tumblr fan art of the Fabulous Five, like doing some sort of isosceles lock, kind of sucking each other's dick in a circle. That could get me up to
Let us know if that's
Doc
out there. And if
Savage
it's
merch,
not out there, maybe one of our Discord patrons who's an
some
artist.
impreg stuff with the chemist and the lawyer.
Yeah, could look into that. But that'll wrap it up for Doc Savage. We're going to be right back, and we're going to be talking about Dr. Alien.
What the hell is this?
You're a man and I'm a woman.
I'm with you so far. Good work, son.
That Earth boy stole the last bottle of the formula.
How do you like college so far?
Judy Landers, Troy Donahue, Edie Williams, and Billy Jacoby. Dr. Alien.
All right, we are back, and we are talking Dr. Alien, a.k.a. I was a teenage sex maniac, a.k.a. I was a teenage sex mutant, a 1989 science fiction comedy film directed by one David Dakota.
Yes. A legend.
And it's worth. So we've covered David Dakota once,
Right.
On this show. We talked about. I can't believe I have to say this title again.
Hell yeah. Do it.
When we did that episode, I said that title like 6 million times. Sorority Babes and the Slime Ball Bowl-orama was the film that we covered. And it was an incredibly
wild,
surreal and incoherent movie about a bunch of college dorks who spy on some sorority girls who are all spanking each other with paddles, and they get caught doing so. So naturally, they make them join the pledges in their mission to go to the local mall and steal a bowling alley trophy from a bowling tournament, which contains a black magic imp who jive talks and grants wishes. And this movie, by the way, is based on the short story The Monkey's Paw.
Right. So all the wishes go bad.
Yes, and the kids start getting kind of killed slasher style a little bit. And
with
I do
a sexual edge, because that's just what David does.
Yeah, he always made films for the softcore sexploitation audience. So any film, no matter the premise, had a bunch of topless women at certain points.
Linnea Quigley in most of them.
Yeah,
yes.
They all feel like pornos that just never get to the porn. That a lot of the time. Yeah, but not to take away anything.
Did some of the
really good
Cinemax
stuff.
kind of Showtime. He did like House on Hooter Hill, I think. He's
he actually did get started directing porn. That was where he. Yeah.
How many movies?
So
does
it's not
he
a
have
totally
here?
unfair
It says
assessment.
158 directed.
177 on IMDb.
Well,
yes.
There you go. What a legend.
So he got, and that's only since like the mid 80s. Like it's insane how many movies. He's released 3 films this year.
Him and Jim Wynorski are just the kings of that bullshit.
Yeah,
what
so if you ever want to take
from him
the David Dakota pill, there's a lot to go there. It's never ending. I've only seen Sorority Babes and now Dr. Alien. And I also, right before this, I kind of wanted to see what a late David Dakota picture looked like. Because I was like,
don't go look at those, dude.
I did, dude. I watched a talking cat.
Yeah, there you go.
Sorry. A talking cat?
Yeah.
It has a big exclamation mark and big question mark.
I saw the trailer for that you posted on Twitter, and I was like, I don't even know if my blade is strong enough for that one. You know what I mean? Like that was just That seemed wild.
It is his attempt at a talking animal family film. It has iMovie editing. The way that the cat talks is it's a freeze frame on the cat, and then they put a black slit on its mouth to make it move, like in 2D editing software. It is scored by what sounds like a keyboard generic sound library.
And it's shot in one of the houses they rent for pornos.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And not only that, he shot 50 of his movies in this porno house. And I looked up this house. Apparently it is owned by a guy who may or may not have gone to prison for fraud and it was part of a gold coin money laundering scheme of some sort.
Cool.
Sigma.
Yeah, it is, one of the sons is like one of his twink friends who is also a porn actor. And obviously David Dakota is he is also a very out and proud gay man. So over the course of his career, the leering shots of women as his sort of aging actresses have gotten less comfortable doing it. It has just become... He shoots every movie in this mansion, and there is like 5 twinks and 5 hunks.
Yeah, and it's just these kind of like sickly looking dudes walking around in tidy whities in this shitty house.
Yeah,
it's wild.
And there's an entire series called the 1313 series.
Yep.
He did 14 entries in this series between 2011 and 2012, and it is all shot in this house, and it is all just dudes with abs and in their underwear walking around, and every one of them has a title like 1313, The Boys and the Giant Killer Bees, or 1313, The Haunted Frat, 1313, Bermuda Triangle, 1313,
Is that another question mark at the end of it?
Yeah, it's just Hercules Unbound, Stepbrother, The Boy Crazies. He made all of these in like a year and a half.
Oh my God.
Here's some embarrassing shit. I'm going to tell you which David Dakota films I've seen from the bottom. I've seen Dreamaniac. I've seen Creepazoids, 87. I've seen Sorority Babes and the Slimeball Bolorama, of course. I've seen Assault of the Killer Bimbos. Nice. I've seen Nightmare Sisters, which is basically Sorority Babes and the Slimeball Bolorama again.
Yeah,
I've seen Lady Avenger, which is Lady Rambo, basically.
That sounds sick.
I've seen Zombie Rampage. Oh, he just produced that. Sure, I've seen that as well. Dr. Alien, sure. Assault of the Party Nerds, sure. Ghetto Blaster, I've seen.
Have you seen The Killer Eye? The one about the homeless man's eyeball who turns into a giant killing machine that like wants to specifically murder hot women.
Oh, he did Ghoul School, the movie Amazon. With that was made with what's his name? Jackie the Joke Man Martling from Howard Stern. Linnea Quigley's Horror Workout, Crash and Burn,
the workout bit,
Skinned Alive, The Girl I Want, Robot Ninja, Puppet Master. Oh, I
was given a brief crash course by our friends over at the Important Cinema Club podcast, Will Sloan and Justin DeClue, because they recently did a Dakota episode, which is how I learned how to pronounce his last name too. It is apparently David Dakota, which has surprised me because that was not how I said it on Slimeball episode at all. But I was like, I'll trust Will and Justin because they've seen way more of his movies than I ever will, and they've actually spoken to him and listened to like a million commentaries and interviews by him.
Oh, he's half Canadian.
He eventually kind of like I think ended his career here in Vancouver or something like that. But they told me because they went through a whole. They talked about Creepazoids. They did Beach Babes from Beyond. They talked about a whole bunch on their episode. It's worth listening to. But the one that they talked about that I wanted to see was his passion project, which apparently was just a really like slight independent gay love story called Leather Jacket Love Story.
Oh yeah, I've seen the poster right here. A twink meets hunk romance.
Yes, that's literally what it is, and they've said that it's genuinely competent and sweet. And he never made a movie like that ever again because basically it just didn't make any money. So now he spends his entire, he works on all of these movies in this porno mansion and also guest directs like Hallmark Christmas movies and like Lifetime franchise films and things like that.
He's got a franchise with Vivica A. Fox, looks like.
Yeah, apparently they're like best friends. He directs like half of the things that she produces.
The Wrong series. We got the wrong mommy, the wrong boy next door, wrong house sitter, wrong stepmother, wrong wedding planner, wrong cheerleader coach. Wrong
so this guy,
he works hard.
He is genuinely an exploitation film legend. No one else has probably done more exploitative marketing gimmicks.
He works at the scale of like Miike,
Yes, he's probably shot a film for like under $1,000, and he would do it with a smile on his face. Like that's the kind of guy that he is. There's a big quote from him where he just said, "I always wanted to make what I could sell, so I just promised myself that I would not be set in my ways. If somebody said, look, we need a horror film, we need a creature feature, we need a Western, we need a period costume drama, I was able to just put that together very quickly."
He made 9 movies in 1989.
Has he ever mentioned wanting to get something that had a bigger budget and maybe more like control? Just because he's been doing such low budget stuff for so long, has he ever mentioned anything that you guys know?
No idea. I'll have to go down the rabbit hole. Maybe the listeners could start going down the rabbit hole, and maybe we'll cover a couple other movies, because he's definitely a very, very fascinating person who started in the 80s making porns and PAing on Roger Corman films, and eventually getting into Full Moon Pictures and making all kinds of really trash genre films, and then eventually making his way over to Hallmark movies and Lifetime movies.
And I think he got Todd Sheets his big break too. That's another big bullshit. He did Sorority Babes and the Dance-a-thon of Death.
Okay.
Yeah, and by the way, his Talking Cat movie, the guy who does the voice for the Talking Cat is Eric Roberts.
Right, of course.
And 100%, the way that his performance sounds is that he was held at gunpoint and was having a stroke, and he was recorded on the other side of a room.
Yeah, like, the mic
it doesn't
is
make
bad.
any. The mic is really bad, and Eric Roberts says that he recorded it in a bathroom in someone's house, and he doesn't remember it. And Dakota says that they did it in Eric Roberts' living room, and he recorded every single one of his lines in under 15 minutes for the film.
It sounds like he's laying on a couch, stoned.
Yeah, that's definitely what it sounds like. There's no care in his voice, and I've only seen the trailer, so I can't imagine what the whole 70,
but that
is.
talking cat who arbitrarily can only talk to a person once, he does bring those two single families together, and the one brother on the one family teaches the other brother how to swim, even though very clearly the man is like in his 20s or 30s, and he's just
sounds touching.
It's a very adorable story. But before he was doing that, we should get into Dr. Alien. That's David Dakota. That's the crowd. This is really important backstory to understand
the tapestry
and the
of David
conditions. Yes, that led to Dr. Alien, which, as we get into it here, is essentially an 80s teen sex comedy premise about a very nerdy kid at school being made into a hunk, being made into a chick magnet. It has that. It has all of the terrible leering male fantasy, bad jokes elements to it, but David Dakota applies this really bizarre and insanely just like nonsensical science fiction premise to it that essentially brings the film.
Nutty Professor. It's like he rips off a lot of Repo Man.
Yeah, it's got that. Didn't we cover a movie where the men couldn't populate the Earth? Was Zardoz like that?
Yeah, that's sort of. Yeah, like where there was an organized science fiction society where they were trying to generate like very masculine men with Sean Connery and his fucking
yeah, because the men that were on the planet couldn't do it. It's kind of similar, I guess.
Yeah, so that's what's happening here, where this nerdy kid's replacement science teacher or sex ed teacher.
Well, because his teacher gets run off the road by a UFO.
Yes.
Yeah, at the beginning.
E.T. in a Camaro is what they say.
Right. Yeah, which does kind of lead to a cool car flip just to set her off.
Well, I mean, that was the market. He was filling in. This is what the people wanted. The people were like, we need. Flick. Yeah, this was it. This is what makes it exploitation. Is he was like, look, we need a little bit of this exploitation. We need a little bit of topless women every 10 minutes or so. But
I mean, I figured you boys need to get a little sleaze back in here.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Throughout that, we're gonna tell this very heartwarming story about a nerdy kid discovering himself and becoming more confident and assertive.
Oh, yeah. And his much cooler little brother, who's played by it's the Jacoby brothers, right? I think they'll let him change his name, but it's the older brother. The main character is the dude from Just One of the Guys, right? And the little brother, his actual brother, is the kid from Tremors, the little shithead. So yeah, you know those guys.
Yeah, well, and I was thinking the main kid is also young Dar in Beastmaster as well. Before it's Mark Singer in his amazing glory. But yeah, so it stars this kid as a kid named Wesley Littlejohn, whose teacher, as we mentioned, is in this crazy car flip stunt that queuing up right after Doc Savage. I was like, how does this have a legitimately impressive car flip stunt in it? Like this had to have been shot for like $100,000 or so,
or
probably more than that.
From
but
something else, maybe, or I don't know.
I'm not sure, but I was like, damn, this whole thing about the UFO like shining the blue light into the car and the science teacher trying to like drive away, being like, oh my god, and then the car flipping. I was slightly impressed by that. But then Jamie, you said something about the title sequence.
Oh yeah, just it's very funny because it goes from that, which is exciting. I was surprised too. And then it does like a very, very quick, just hard cut to this like cheap title card that says Dr. Alien, and there's no real like flow into the title card, and then it goes right back into the student's life, I guess, Wesley, and it just rings that kind of like low budget, I guess you could say, charm a little bit, but it is kind of
there's a bit of charm to this.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There definitely is.
Like he's a big nerd. His dad's a big nerd. His dad's an accountant, right? And he wants to be an accountant.
Yeah, stereotypical 80s nerd. They have the ties and the cardigan combo. They're doing like the same mannerisms. There's like this goofy, upbeat comedy music, and it's definitely the 80s sex comedy.
There's a good bit when the little brother says, "I want to be an accountant," the little brother says, "Gross! I want to be a teamster."
yeah,
that's a good line. I also like the way that they introduce the suburban feeling of the family. Just they sit down, and right before they all sit down, they all like unfold their napkins and put it on their lap, except for the little brother, of course. It's a subtle thing, but
it's all very 50s. It's all very 50s sci-fi throwback.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, they're saying lines like, oh, he's such a good boy. There's nothing wrong with him. What a perfect child, that kind of stuff.
He's a big time nerd.
But he is a big nerd, and he has basically just one cool friend at school who drives him to school. He has a crush on this girl named Leanne. He can't talk to her. He's suffering through all of the cliche 80s teen nerd experiences, and he's having a bad time. And he's getting into all kinds of antics as well. And Dakota obviously has an incredibly strange comedic sensibility, which we talked about when we did Slimeball Bolorama, because I will say this is slightly more coherent than that film, which most of the jokes are like... things like a character just showing up and being like, surprise, it's Rhonda. And you didn't even know their name.
My favorite line from that is, it's the one I put in my review, where it's just like, he used black magic to call up some sort of imp, to help him be a better bowler and all. And things got out of hand. It's that kind of thing. It's very corny and cheesy and funny.
Yeah, murders with like heads being shoved in bowling ball polishers, and like a head going into a deep fryer at one point, and a character just saying like crispy critters. Yeah. Another great line, she demons, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, there's some good lines in there.
Yeah, so like this definitely displays a lot of that, where it's once again this thing where half the time you're not 100% sure, if what you're watching is supposed to be funny or not. But having seen more Dakota films, I am under the impression now that he is more in on these jokes than I previously
He
definitely is laughing his ass off when, he is, having the new sex ed teacher, Dr. Zenobia, played by Julie Landers, who's a regular TV comedy guest star on things like The Love Boat and Happy Days and Charlie's Angels. And her sex ed, opening sex ed lecture is like, asking all the boys about their penis and then saying things like sex, banging, screwing, hosing, humping, penetration, stimulation. I love the way she says ejaculation. It's ejaculation.
Yeah.
And he always asks things like partially as a question.
And she also says things that aren't necessarily like what a sex ed teacher would say. She doesn't always just stick to penis, vagina, whatever.
Cookie.
But exactly. She says stuff like that, blowing your load, like that kind of shit. And it kind of sets
cookies.
It kind of sets off the teenage minds to be like, oh, what is she doing here? Plus she's hot, so that helps too.
Did you see the size of those cones on her? She's a goddess. Yeah. Whoa. And she has a vampire looking assistant named Drax.
Who's played by that little dude Raymond O'Connor, who's always good. He was he was the tour guide in The Rock. At Alcatraz.
Right.
He was an evil little magician and cast a deadly spell. Did you ever see that one? That excellent HBO kind of Lovecrafty movie?
I don't think I've seen that one. No.
Oh, dude, it's dope. Clancy Brown's the bad guy. Yeah.
Yeah, but it turns out that this new sex ed teacher that is replacing the one that was run off by E.T. in a Camaro off the road, and she is there to, as we later find out through the course of the film, as an alien who is trying to repopulate her own civilization by experimenting on new types of drugs that will make the men more sexually vital. And so they decide they're going to experiment on the teen boys, and all of the boys, I think she asks for like a volunteer, like to stay for after class. And all of the boys are immediately already obsessed with her and want to volunteer. And they're also horny very clearly as the teen.
Except Wesley.
Well, except Wesley. So he doesn't raise his hand until she offers extra credit. And then he raises his hand and she selects him. And she's selecting him because the whole idea is to choose someone who is not doesn't have a lot of virility to them and trying to increase that.
And what's weird is there's kind of an internal consistency with that,
Yeah. This is, from what I've seen, this is absolutely the most coherent David Dakota film, where I could track what it was that was happening in every given scene, and they were, setting it up and explaining it enough that I could follow, and it was populated with enough strange detail that I was like not incredibly bored throughout. Like when she just starts pulling out the, she's like, okay, you're going to be a human guinea pig, and I'm going to put this vitamin that's going to better your physical condition and make you a happier you. And then she pulls out the giant needle from Reanimator. I was like, okay, that's just funny.
The green goo.
Yeah. And she's like asking him to drop his pants, and he's very clearly uncomfortable. And
they add a lot of like cartoonish elements to it too. When she eventually pokes him in the butt and takes it out, there's a little like pop sound that's very much out of like the Looney Tunes or something like that.
And
he's also giving hilarious narration.
His sidekick is doing a Jerry Lewis the whole movie.
Yeah. And he's describing the feelings of the needle going into him. He's like, my insides had been turned into guacamole and my brain had been microwaved. Like, it's so clearly intentionally over the top and just ridiculous.
And he's doing it in the middle of dialogue too. Like he's talking and then his thoughts will pop up, but then he'll continue on his sentence after that thought ends. It is strange at times, but there's something about constantly having his stream of consciousness throughout this bizarre thing that is very funny and leads to some good lines.
It's like Lynch's Dune,
That's right.
And as a result of this Stuart Gordon green goo, he grows a little phallic, little fleshy alien stalk that sticks out of his head, straight out of like From Beyond or Brain Damage, and it starts doing little winks.
The forehead would be gross. It comes out of the very top of the head, like My Favorite Martian style.
Yeah.
It's a very 1950s alien bullshit kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a hilarious scene where he has to like cover it up like it's like a zit, and he's trying to hide it from his brother, and he's just literally like putting a hat on, and you can see it like trying to stick out of his hat and everything like that. It's literally like what if an element from Videodrome was turned into like an insanely cheesy sex comedy.
And whenever any woman sees his little flappy penis tentacle on top of his head, they get mega horny.
Insanely horny at its disgusting little kissy noises that it makes at them. It's like... And they're like, oh my God, that's the hottest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. You know, the guitar kicks in, the neon lights kick in. You know, he starts the part two where they start having sex. The teacher starts having sex with him, and there's like the silhouette of her riding him on the anatomy chart. Yeah, which is like actually a pretty cool shot as the other doctor is like taking the notes down. This is just it. Is if we're directly comparing the two. I was surprised at the level of just like no budget ambition that this film has. I don't think it all works.
Of David's best films.
I don't think it all works, but I was just impressed at like there was clear effort on display by David Dakota to make this insanely monumentally stupid movie work and be more competent and coherent than it should be. Yeah, and I was impressed at how it didn't always work, but it worked for me more than I expected it to, because there is stuff in this that just is so dumb.
Well, he takes from other movies like whole cloth. It's pretty great.
Yeah, I found that when he did specific gags, those were pretty funny, and I enjoyed them. Like we were talking about, even something simple like I just said, the cartoon sound effects. I kind of thought the blind man thing when he trips over the bully's feet was a little bit funny. The things I got a little bit more eye rolly on were just their kind of like sex conversations between him and Marvin. I thought that those were just a little bit cheesy, but when it came to anything that was associated with the sci-fi elements, especially, I thought that those were great. Or like we were talking about earlier, when they were doing some of the suburban things, like the in sequence folding of the napkin and his brother getting a big close up and calling him butthead and shit like that.
Yeah, I mean, I like to, after the sex scene where he's with the teacher, where he's like, wow, that was a wonderful experience. But it also felt like my body had been invaded by something weird and terrifying. And it literally is like a sex comedy Cronenberg thing going on there. And his little brother is really into like pulp movies and stuff like that. He's watching what looks like one of the late It's Alive sequels on TV when he comes home.
Oh, yeah.
It is interesting to think that he often says that he gets like amnesia and doesn't remember a lot of it. So there is something about him finding his confidence through something he's kind of doing completely subconsciously. It's I guess it also gets a little icky when you think about it too, but it's
I think the brother was watching. I looked it up. I think he's watching It's Alive 3: Island of the Alive.
Nice.
Yeah.
Which is a great movie, by the way.
Yeah, I gotta watch that.
Larry Cohen. It's so wonderful. We'll cover it at some point. Love Larry Cohen doing his own like like an old school King Kong-esque like monster movie, but like all the babies are like working out on an island, and like they're now like a new sort of species the world has to fend off, but it's still connected to the story about like paternal love for your own little monster creature and stuff like that.
Very awesome.
It makes sense for him to put that in this, because it also is just as stupid and bizarre, but committed to it. And yeah, as you were kind of mentioning, Jamie, if you started to try to analyze like the consent politics of this movie, they would get a little iffy, for sure. But I do appreciate. Like essentially
like raped in that locker room, basically.
He does not
just kind of over and over.
Yeah,
like
they play it off as comedy.
Like, and because of his buddy, he ends up in the ladies' locker room with his little penis stock coming out, and all the ladies see it, and they go insane, and they jump him.
Yeah, and even the teacher wants in.
Yeah, and they have that. I think it's a great shot too. When the two
of them
girls
like dragging him away and him
drag
like,
him
no!
on the long bench, and he's just screaming like
and Wesley is screaming in fear and pain.
Yeah. But yeah.
Definitely. Well, and then you also get into the fact that obviously like the alien thing itself is also making the girls do things they don't want to do. Like they have that scene when he gets in the car with his crush and the crush is like all over him. And then she wakes up from it at one point and she's like, why were you taking my blouse off, you disgusting pervert? And, things like that.
And I went back and looked, and David pretty much, that scene where he's driving along in the car and she's walking on the sidewalk and he picks her up and gets her in the car. Pretty much took that shot for shot from Emilio Estevez picking up the same actress in Repo Man.
Oh,
dude, that's a good reference. David Dakota,
for sure.
man of taste.
Absolutely. In the very beginning, that's basically Repo Man too. That scientist was basically the dude in the Cadillac,
Awakens him up to like a new world that he's got going on, where he's having crazy topless sexploitation dreams that are incredibly chintzy and leering and hilarious, where like the women are just dancing in various outfits and he's getting super horny in his sleep.
Dreamscape.
Yeah.
And just some like black room, like it's just like he's in nothingness, basically, just devoid of sex.
Yeah, he's got a little tie on his head. He's having a great time. But then he wakes up and he looks cool. And he looks fit. He starts popping the collar, putting on the chucks, and he's taking the car to school that day. He's getting confident. He's getting a date with the girl he has a crush on. He's picking her up. He's driving her to school. He's going to drag race the local bully in another intense kind of like car driving sequence, which I was like, why does David Dakota, this is like the only movie he has to have ever had where he has like car sequences going on. Oh, that's not true. Slimeball has kind of like a chase at the end, but it's not very impressive.
The drag race thing with the that's a very 50s kind of trope-ish, thing.
The only thing it's missing is like the LA River.
Yeah.
What was that movie we talked about with Trevor Henderson this year? The Halloween Party one, Jamie. That's what it reminded me of when he's driving like the little dead girl around and like 100%. Literally there's like a part. Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called now, but I totally know what you're talking about. I also like that Leanne, like this is one of the first moments where she's kind of uncomfortable with his newfound confidence, like because he's like, I'm in a drag race, and she's just like, don't do that, let me out of the car if you're going to do that. But then he just continues to do it anyway because he's just feeling it. And that kind of leads to other things too, like we were talking about the car situation where she thinks that he was the one that opened her blouse, and then there's a couple other situations where like
she was just trying to get him some Rolaids because he was feeling nauseous. The horny little alien stock is starting to have other effects on his body that he's not comfortable with.
The aliens are continuing to inject him with green shit.
Yeah.
So we can't help
it. And the vampire looking assistant, he's getting cock blocked. He's really interested in his little alien partner, and she is just not taking any kind of notice to him at all. It's making him very sad as they are both observing and tailing the behavior of this young teen boy who has discovered his sexual confidence.
The issue that they have come to Earth to solve.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I do like that it's like they're basically just willing to experiment on this teenager. It's actually the reason that Drax won't take it is because it's like an experimental thing that they're not sure is going to work, I believe. And then later on, when Drax ends up with the little head penis as well, he's basically like, I got sick of watching that nerd, just take you to town all the time. So I'm going to go ahead and just go with take the serum and hope for the best.
He clearly missed the part where the girl was not happy at how she was being turned super horny, and later shows up in his dream with a chainsaw and is like, Wesley, I forgot something. What? This? And just starts ripping through him. And at a certain point, Wesley, he's like, something's up here. He's got those Doc Savage intellectual skills. And he starts asking questions. He's like, what's the dang deal here? I like the way that he phrases that. It's very
that's great.
And eventually they do kind of explain it, that he has to learn his own body, and he has to figure this kind of out for himself. And he's describing that, his symptoms are headaches, nausea, nightmares, women losing all control around me like mud on a pig.
Mud on a pig.
Yeah, that's how I always describe that. And but it's also making his life better in some ways. He starts being able to kick the bully's ass in this hilarious cartoon fight sequence, which again is
a band of cool guys.
I was going to say about the fight sequence that, again, it's not very good, but I will say that on a certain directorial level, you could see that he was trying to direct it.
Yeah, he was doing that whole all of the sudden they know kung fu thing.
Yeah, and he was doing where he was hitting the bully's face like it was like a boxing speed bag over and over again, and he ends on like a big ass like slow-mo drop kick that he does of him.
I do like the way that they shot the drop kick, because what they do is just have like his leg, like pretty much they probably filmed it where his the bully's face was at an elevation that he could get his leg up, and then just kind of brushed his face against it.
Yes,
it's very
and didn't even budget. Shoot it in slow motion, just had them move very slowly.
Yeah, exactly. And I did get a kick out of that.
Yeah.
And it was funny to see another pseudo parody fight.
Cartoon fight situation.
It happens
going
in
on.
Doc too. Yeah, so that was funny to see.
That was definitely a connection. I was just surprised at Dakota's level, because even in other Dakota films that I've seen, like for example, A Talking Cat, there's no visual ambition. I think I read that that movie has literally 2 locations in it. The one family's house and the other family's house, and it has 59 establishing shots in less than 80 minutes.
Okay.
So there's 2 locations, man. You don't like.
Yeah, I've seen him do some action. Like I did watch Puppet Master 3 because it was like a prequel, so it felt kind of disconnected to the rest of them. Okay, and he does know how to do like some good.
Well, I think he just produced that one. He didn't direct that one.
It says he did.
I think he did direct it.
Really? Yeah, it says he directed it.
Yeah.
Shit.
And to me, I think it's probably when it just comes to like an overall project, it felt like a very might be his strongest for me. It doesn't have as much like funny charm.
It's great to see like an artisan like David handled the Holocaust in World War II and stuff like that. It's really
I'd be curious.
He does still there's not as many boobs, but there's still boobs.
Sure.
Okay.
And there's a lot of good like.
I have questions then, because that's not David Dakota Voturism.
Well, it's got
either
that,
you got to have
sick,
the
like,
boobs, or at a certain
boobs
point you got to have shirtless twinks running around. Those are your 2. Those are David's 2 modes.
When I think of Puppet Master 3, I think of the sick stop motion 2-armed or 3-armed cowboy, whatever, with the little 6 guns.
Yeah, the 6 arms. Yeah. It's pretty sweet. Yeah, he does some good puppet work in it, or claymation, I think it might be. But anyway, what I was trying to say, he was just he is good at action and like horror action, like the drilling into a chest and stuff like that. He can do it. So. Interesting.
Yeah, because I just, based on Slimeball, where we were kind of not sure how to read that. And it's not like we enjoyed it. It's not like the worst film I've ever seen or anything. Fun. It was just a case of I didn't see much like ambition behind it. I just saw it as like, I thought it was just kind of haphazard in a way that this is like very clearly he was making visual choices. Like he was directing scenes to be specifically cartoony in that way. Or there's a great, honestly, crossfade matching shot here of him falling into bed with his arms outstretched, and then it cuts to a shot of a dissected frog in the science lab, also like in the crucified position, as we start hearing him have sex with exactly while he's having. You
could feel him having fun a little bit when he made it,
Yeah, and there's a logic to that. Like, this kid literally is an experiment by this teacher, but through sex education, and you can totally see that happening. Yeah. And then you get all the crazy in between the sequence of him being insanely confused and having amnesia every time he is just assaulted by various girls around the school who want to briefly flirt with him and go topless before going into the sex scene. Like he gets to have sex with the bully's girlfriend, all the girls in the shower who he just barely escapes from, even though again it's played for laughs because it's like, isn't this every guy's fantasy? All 20 girls who were just working out and we were just leering at their gym workout sequences going after him. And then he gets into it and he goes, look, this thing is working for me. All the girls want me except for the girl that I like. You know, she was actually upset with me and rejected me. So he goes back to the oldest trick in the book. I'm going to join a metal band called the Sex Mutants.
That's right. That's what
it's the oldest pickup tactic we've got.
That's right.
And it works. That's why it's a classic. And even though earlier, again, she was kind of impressed by his like classical piano playing, which is really funny. He's like, I'm going to get into a metal band, but she's, you know, despite it not being her scene,
and
she's
Wesley
pretty into it when he
brings
gets up
the
there.
Sex Mutants home to have dinner with his parents, and let me tell you,
They are characters.
They do not have a good time.
They hate labels, but their core is good old fashioned headbanging heavy metal rock and roll with a surface of gloss glitter glam and a touch of death and punk anarchist influence.
That was probably my favorite joke because growing up in metal bands, so many people have this like very elitist persona at times or mindset where they're just like, oh man, yeah, I just don't want to put a label on it. I guess you could say we're this, but we've also got a mixture of basically what the guy said. And I thought that was so funny to see it in a film, in a parody moment. It was great.
And I like that David asked the one guy, could you make some sounds like Michael Winslow did in Police Academy? Can you do that? That'd be fun. Can you do that? And he did.
Yeah, and the one guy is like, we like to make people's ears bleed. You know, we are teenage sex mutant. They even did an original song too, which is very funny.
For a metal band.
And again, it's entirely consistent. It's a film about a teenage sex mutant.
Exactly.
Yep.
I like the song too. It was funny.
Yeah, that was what was funny.
It wasn't bad.
This is what surprised me is when he tries to once again get the girl in the big climactic sequence at this concert after, you know, having everything kind of go crazy wrong around the school. It is a full-on concert sequence with the main kid shirtless in a leather jacket, everyone having a great time, him going like psycho punk mode, screaming killing machine, everyone's having a blast.
That's where you said it reminded you of Pyun, right?
I thought of Radioactive Dreams while I was watching this.
Totally.
That scene, this sequence, I for sure was thinking about that because I was thinking like, you know, they're gonna do what most films do. They establish the song, and you're like, okay, he's a rock star, sick. He's got some confidence, and then you know they're just gonna do
some standard comedy coverage, but no, it's like a full neon fog machines, like crazy in your face performance that they're giving on it and everything.
It's like a music video basically, but like a live on stage music video. So it's pretty funny the way that they do that. And he even does, it's not a full song, I guess, but it's half a song with the three ladies that are called like the Tangpoons or the Poontangs or something like that. Yeah. Which is a fucking hilarious name. But anyway, yeah, so he's got like two musical numbers in it. They're kind of like glam metal, I guess is what I'd say. Heavy metal, glam a little bit.
Yeah, and they're all a precursor to the teacher finally showing up in her alien fit, and he's like, "Didn't know you were into new wave."
And the alien like mask thing they have is pretty good.
It's impressive.
I love the stretchy face. It reminded me a little bit of what's that science fiction movie? Brazil, where they where he does
when he puts a face out.
I was thinking of Hellraiser when just before he gets torn to shreds, when his face is like literally like the skin is pulled off his face practically by all the hooks.
Yep, I can see that.
And then when she rips her face off, it's a giant like actual animatronic alien head of some kind,
pretty
but like
fucking
also
good.
It does, and like her lips really move.
Yeah, I was like, this is really impressive, and it looks incredibly uncomfortable for whoever's inside. If it is the actual actress, I don't know. But yeah, it's a really awesome mask, really awesome.
And then like the sidekick does a little Jerry Lewis bit where he asks her, "Do you make it the big laser gun or the little laser gun?" I'll go get the big one. Okay.
Yeah, he escapes by just putting a trash can on her head because her head is so big that it actually does get stuck in it.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, swollen-headed, puffy-eyed, blue-headed being from another planet is gonna screw up my sex life. No way. He's like setting off chemical bombs in the in the school.
Oh yeah, to take care of Drax.
Yeah, the alien starts going carry mode on the concert, just like trying to massacre all the various children with like her Rocky Horror alien gun.
Yeah. And it's pretty cool. I like
and she opens fire in the crowd.
I really like the way the explosions look too, because it's not like there's no fire. It's just big sparks and smoke, and then people flipping over a banister or something like that. Like it's got this cheesy quality to it, but I like that. It also works with the laser gun itself because she's got this like purple beam, and so it just gives off this low budget sci-fi thing.
It's
that
like
I
the
really
wave
like.
beam from Super Metroid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I also love just like all the neon and the fog machines and like the various kids like having to do dives off of banisters and like from the second floor and shit like that. I was like,
and stuff.
Yeah, it was, and all of this is because she's very upset that obviously that they need to take this young boy back for studying because clearly their experiment has worked. They have made a very sexually confident man out of a nerd, and they need to take it back home to their men so that they can repopulate their planet.
And this is like legit
because the men can't
decent
get it
mayhem. Yeah, they can't get boners in the alien planet.
Yeah, I think she literally says they can't get it up, something like that.
Oh, and Drax has just listened to all of that, just like,
Yeah, Drax like, do you have to tell everybody? Yeah, like, I get it. I know. Jesus.
Like, look, we can't satisfy you. We know the issue.
But Drax is willing to take that syringe.
Or maybe
He's
the
like,
thing
I've
is,
had
like,
it.
all the alien, like, all the ladies on their planet are babes like her, and all the men are little weirdos like Drax. Maybe that's it.
Yeah. So they give this nerd a crash course in human sexuality to promote growth within him. You know,
that's right.
And they tell him, look, your personality didn't change. It just made him more confident, made you want to explore your interests. You know, that's all it is.
So listeners, just go get laid. It'll work out.
But he's still very upset because they violated the Star Trek Prime Directive and interfered with mankind. And he is a little upset about all the consent rules. They've kind of messed with him a little bit, and the people that he's interested in. They might have made him do things he didn't think he could do, and then they were like, well, actually, you did all of those things. Girls were just irresistible to you. And I love that as soon as the dudes find out what it is, that it just makes all the girls want to have sex with you. They all start fighting over it until they break the glass entirely.
Yeah.
And then she goes, well, I guess my entire race is doomed to extinction.
But then luckily Drax has got that head boner baby ready to go.
Yeah. So they go off to have a wild weekend in Vegas and repopulate the planet themselves. And it is true. They are confirmed in the narration after
they get married, and she has a broodmare of millions of eggs.
Yeah, 24 alien babies in the opening weekend of their
sex romp.
Yes, and
then everyone's pretty much set up. Like the parents are now hippies that are just like pot smoking hippies.
Everyone learned a lesson.
Yeah, the dad quit his accountant job so he can be cool. And then,
I think the buddy. The buddy's like managing the lady band.
He's managing the poontangs or the tang poons.
Yeah, and the brother goes on to direct low-budget horror movies, which is a hilarious detail because it's set up by one frame earlier in the film of him watching It's Alive or whatever it is.
He also says he wants to be a teamster,
Yeah. And then I think the one girl says that she ends up being a stripper and marries a senator or something like that.
It does sound like Animal House.
Happy endings, I guess, for everybody.
Yeah, and together, him and his new girlfriend Leanne, they finished college and took the band on the road and recorded a bunch of albums. And the lesson is, if you want to get a good job, get a good education. But by that he means a sex education.
That's right.
Aliens gave him a crash course in human sexuality, and it very much benefited him. And that is Dr. Alien,
all
which
your
is nuts.
incels out there, you just gotta get over it, man.
Just gotta do it.
I just am floored that this is, you know, like softcore 80s teen sex comedy, not a very good genre of film. I feel like the few times that I've seen it, I find it very, very unbearable to watch for the entirety of it, because all of the sort of like nerds versus the jock kids, it's so dated, grating. And most of it is it
gets like really rapey and like consent wise.
Yeah, like
this
every time
does, but
it flips it a bit though. It flips it.
I would say that this definitely does flip it in the sense of, you know, like it's not like it's happening to him. It's a bad experience happening to him in a way, but it's also supposed to be like the thing his friend would like fantasize about, like those conversations where his friend is all like, man, you're living the fucking dream, man. Like, I wish that this would be happening to me. But like very clearly, you know, if it was, he wouldn't. Like, this is like, there is like some sci-fi horror elements thrown in there, even if they aren't like, you know, they aren't like full as, you know, they aren't really as full horror. Very, very light, yes. But I'm just surprised that he made a movie in that genre and then combined it just with this insane premise of, you know, the sexy alien posing as his teacher who injects him with serum to grow the penis stalk that makes every girl horny, which makes no sense.
Like, this is legitimately one of his best movies.
Well, the thing for me is that I think that,
positive rating.
It was just surprisingly, in terms of what it was aiming for,
there's a lot of charm
and how
to
he was
it,
visually getting there.
I think the lead actor brings a lot of that.
Mm-hmm. I was just surprised at how coherent it was, and, you know, broadly sometimes competent and quirky and intentionally in this way. Like, the fact that this is a movie about a kid just becoming more open and confident and liberated with who he is, and it features like topless sexploitation dream sequences and punk rock musical sequences and, you know, some full-on Space Invader shit with the laser guns and giant prosthetic alien heads. Like, it just makes no sense.
It's bizarre.
And the fact that it works at all kind of blew me away, and the fact that he did it inside what is typically just a very leering male fantasy genre trash sort of milieu just kind of blew me away, really. And yeah, it did remind me of Albert Pyun, as Jamie mentioned, because Radioactive Dreams, especially for the straight up musical sequence, but also with just Albert Pyun movies always have this passion, they're very cheaply made, but they're very energetic and happy to just exist. And that is something I felt kind of while watching this film, and also Dakota, throwing in references to like Repo Man and like War of the Worlds and like, you know, all of these various things that he clearly loves, and throwing in the It's Alive thing and the little brother who's really into exploitation movies. And by the way, I don't know if this is true because I don't know how much I trust David Dakota and the things he says in interviews, but he said Brad Pitt auditioned for this movie.
That is awesome.
I'd buy it.
That would have been great.
George Clooney did some bullshit. I'd buy it.
Yeah, I do wonder what Brad Pitt in the leading role for this film would do for its
like we just watched
reputation.
That bad new version of Grizzly 2 with The Revenge. Where it's got that scene with George Clooney and Laura Dern and Charlie Sheen getting murdered by a bear.
Oh, nice! I haven't seen that.
There you go. But yeah, so for me, this is kind of in like the lowish to like middle 3 territory, pivoting towards the reductive rating round for basically everything already said. I already did my segment.
Yeah,
so.
I'm going 3.26.
Nice.
I love the specificity.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the 3 as well. I think that.
Hey, we talked Jamie up.
Oh no, I 3'd it. I was just.
Oh, you did.
I
okay.
was just. I was on the fence until I saw a couple of his other movies today. I do actually think Puppet Master 3 is better, but
I'm gonna have to check it out.
It's I still think there's a lot of charm in this. I like some of the comedy. I don't love all of it. Some of it does have that kind of like 80s, you know, sex comedy grating that I don't necessarily love here and there. But some of the gags are really good. And I do like the idea of, you know, this kind of like sexual education liberating you and finding your confidence and all of that. I do think it's
very sweet.
The consent stuff, if you start thinking about it, gets very weird and icky. But I don't think that he's, you know, trying to say anything with that. So I you can probably just
the
leave
only
it alone
person
for the most part.
Who really feels there's two people who really feel victimized in this movie. One is Wesley, the main character.
Yes.
And two is the science teacher who gets murdered in the beginning.
Yeah, but the only thing I guess you could argue is it's like that. I recently watched Revenge of the Nerds, and it's not a good one. And
there are a lot of victims in that movie. Yeah.
Yes. At the end of that movie, he dresses up as a person that a certain girl thinks he is, and then gives her oral sex. And because he's really good at it and she enjoyed it, it's fine. It's all good.
She's cool with it.
She's super cool with it. And it's not the exact same, but there are elements to this that are kind of similar with these girls that don't know what they're doing and are just like having gangbangs with this guy. So
yeah, they're getting brainwashed by like alien pheromones. It's like
yeah. So, but that being said, there is a lot of fun to be had here, and I did like the sex ed sequences where she's saying things that no sexual education teacher would say, just to kind of turn the boys on. I think that's funny. There's a lot here. So I'm going to still give it a 3. But I will say I would recommend.
Definitely the most tolerable nerd turns into a
cool guy,
a chick
80s.
magnet.
Yeah.
Cool
much
guy
better than
that
Zapped. Much better than Zapped.
Yeah, I've definitely seen some horrible riffs on that. The fact that David Dakota managed to turn that into something that does feel sweet and fun is, I think, a testament to what he's capable of doing.
Like when he gives a shit and when he actually works on it and does something, he can make something pretty fun.
Yeah, to turn this into some type of like liberation of, finding your confidence and finding your like inner talent and skill through that confidence is
and
cool.
Music,
to bring
baby.
it. Yeah, I like that too, of course. So, but to bring that to this genre is difficult to do. So I have to give it up for him for that. So yeah, I'll give it a 3, and I will recommend people watch Puppet Master 3 because I did think that was
it was good.
Probably my favorite film of his that I've seen so far. So.
Did he didn't do 2 though. 2 is maybe my favorite of those.
Yeah, he didn't do 2. He started on 3.
We're going to become. This is now the David Dakota show. We could do an entire year of David Dakota films.
Yes, you could,
and probably still not cover them all.
It would be hard. Yeah, definitely. Like listen to these. You got Witch House, Final Stab, Deadly Embrace. Like all of these would suit the show just by the names alone and the posters. So
I've seen all of them.
Murder Weapon.
I've seen that.
Murder Weapon. That's a great name.
Damn, he's done a lot of Puppet Master. He did Puppet Master 6 as well.
Yeah, he's done a few.
Interesting. And 7.
Let's all put on some like tidy whities and do 1313 Sleazoid podcast.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
Just walk on like, bro, something feels weird in here, bro.
A bonus transmission for all his 2000s plus 1313s.
Oh, bro.
We'll get Jamie in a Speedo cleaning out the pool.
I think that like
that'll be the new set.
Making the equivalent of the stupid Hooter films for like gay dudes and ladies, that's not. There's a market that hasn't been really established there. He's going for it, I guess.
Yeah. I can't remember what movie it is. I'll have to go back and listen to the Important Cinema Club guys, what they said. But they described one of his early horror films when he started adding more. There was where the women stopped kind of wanting to do nudity for him, but the men were just super stoked about doing nudity for him. So there is a certain point where he was making horror films for like the sort of to titillate the soft core, bros who watch them. Right. And there were a certain point where the ratio flipped to like it was like 80% like men in their underwear instead, and he literally started telling his producers that he was making horror films for women.
I have this funny thought of like a hardcore Dakota fan that loved the 80s boobs era, and as he's watching them throughout the 90s, and it's just getting, he's just like, so there's a change happening here.
Yeah, but in Dakota fashion, the thing that would be amazing would be someone being like, I'm pretty cool with it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no. I just find it funny because the audience, like all of the movies I've seen with him, he's got the nerds, and whether they're nerds or jocks, every single person, every man has just a topless photo of some woman just throughout his room. It's just basically a collage, and he does that every single time. So just seeing that transition slowly would probably be something else and kind of funny.
Hell yeah. And I genuinely cannot wait to do his 1998 Leather Jacket love story, yeah. which is legitimately his attempt at just a indie drama romance. And apparently it is just straight up, like it's a real movie.
I see.
I'm going to try and dig up a copy.
Got like a 3.3.
Yeah, I was recommended it to them on the Important Cinema Club guys. Both said that it's his best movie, and it's like it's really sad that like it made no money and basically made him double down on continuing to do the trash that would make money because like apparently Leather Jacket Love Story like really played like film festivals and stuff. Like he was like legitimate. He tried to He tried to explore more artistically than he does in, say, A Talking Cat.
Look, I'm gonna have to go.
Glad
and
he
watch.
Still got work though.
Like after this later tonight, I'm gonna have to go and watch A Talking Cat again.
Oh my god! Yeah. Am I gonna have to bring out the blade? Am I gonna have to do it?
Yeah, anyone who calls themselves a 1-star samurai like they do in our Discord and thinks that they have the skills to take on the worst movies and train their minds and their bodies. You need to take on A Talking Cat.
God damn it!
From 2013.
And you know I'll do it.
You will do it.
It's cruel what you're doing to me right now.
I am testing your machismo.
There have been some amazing. Last couple of years, there's been some amazing new bad movies, dudes. Like all these people who've never made a movie before, they were in quarantine for a year.
Sonic.
Oh no, this is like not the big movies. I'm talking about the little movies.
Sorry.
People who just like they'd never made a movie before, and they got like, this is it. This is my script. And they get whoever they can get into the nicest house they can get to be bubbled together. And they're really bad, but they're fascinating. And there's just hundreds of them.
Yeah.
And they're all a lot of haunted houses.
That's what's crazy.
Yeah, like indie, like bizarre, shitty indie filmmaking, especially genre-wise.
You can find half these on Tubi, by the way.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, there's so much.
Yeah,
Dakota
well,
on
and
Tubi,
also
it's crazy.
David Dakota, obviously, he was doing Full Moon Pictures for Charles Band for a long time, but like Charles Band is still around making movies. He released a movie in 2021 called Corona Zombies.
Oh yeah,
he's still
he is on it.
Yeah. His most recent one came out this year and is called Famous TNA 2. Nice.
I like the Charles Band idea of his economic idea to make a horror movie cost less is you just make the monster small.
Yeah.
You got the master. Genius. Yeah, you got
tiny little monsters. Yeah, makes sense to me. But yeah, I think we should wrap it up. What are we doing here?
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, boys. That was fun.
That was Doc Savage, the Man of Bronze from 1975, and Dr. Alien from
I'm gonna go eat a big
1989.
chicken fried steak and watch A Talking Cat starring Eric Roberts.
Do it up. That's the way to do it.
Like highly acclaimed film. That's
and then pair it with A Talking Cat. Yes. That's what. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But thanks, obviously, to everyone for listening up and hopefully watching up. Everyone should be doing the homework on this episode, even if you think that you don't want to be. But thanks, Oliver, for bringing these films with you.
Thanks,
if you've got anything to,
I'm sorry.
No, it was great. It was wonderful.
I had fun.
If you've got anything that you would like to plug while you're here, this is usually where we have you do that. What's going on in Oliver World?
I'd like to.
You got some streams coming up?
I'd like to plug the bathtub because I'm thinking about taking a bath. No, I'm just playing. No, just hang in there, folks. That's all I got. I got nothing to plug. Just take it easy.
Well, they could probably go find you on Twitter somewhere and see you recommending movies to them.
Sure. I got art up at oliverleach.com, Leach. That's where I put my stuff. Go.
Hell yeah. Send us those pictures you take at whatever the mall was that you were talking about.
Grapevine Mills.
Yeah, definitely look into that and go follow Oliver at Bakun with 2 Ks and a bunch of O's.
Did you boys see Space Disco 1?
No.
No.
It's by...
That's terrifying. You can't just open a sentence like that.
It's by the guy who did... the Space Disco 1.
By Damon Packard.
This is what Oliver's Twitter is like too. If you just want to like hear about random shit you've never heard
it's
about.
It's a Damon Packard joint. You know,
familiar.
It's about.
I've only seen one of his films, and I think it was the Star Wars one.
It's like he shot it at like Universal City Walk, like in LA, and it's supposed to be a sequel to Logan's Run, but with all the space battles, he just re-edited scenes from disco skating, like skating rink movies from the 70s, and added zapping sounds, and like the skaters are supposed to be the like spaceships or something. It's fucking nuts.
Yeah, he just makes movies out of nothing. Yeah, the one I've seen of his is the Untitled Star Wars mockumentary,
that's good.
Where he made like a fake documentary about the making of Attack of the Clones using like a bunch of footage. I just remember the line, "Fuck, read a book, bitch," or whatever.
Like his best one is Reflections of Evil. I was talking to
I've heard that's
on
awesome.
my list forever.
I was talking to Simon Baird about that. He convinced me to watch it. He says it's one of the best horror movies of the and he might be right. It's about essentially the ghost of a child who died from eating too much sugar while going on E.T. the ride. And it's his adult ghost kind of walking through LA getting screamed at by like insane homeless people, and it's fucking nuts. Yeah,
I've heard it's wild.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in that. So yeah, if you guys want more crazy movie recommendations, go hit up Oliver. But for our listeners, we're going to be back in 1 week's time, where we are going to be getting very sweaty and very swampy.
That's right.
Where we're going to be talking about Body Heat, starring William Hurt. I forget who directed that already for some reason. But we're going to be pairing it with Wild Things.
Sex Education continues.
Oh, hell yeah.
From 1998 by McNaughton, the guy who did Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. So we're going to be doing some very sweaty updates on noirs done with very erotic undertones. And then we are going to be coming back
up. Oh, yeah, that was Lawrence Kasdan. That did.
Yeah, Lawrence Kasdan. That's right. That's who did Body Heat. We're classing it back up with Wild Things, which AKA the second title is Sex Crimes.
You know Lawrence Kasdan. He made Dreamcatcher. You remember Dreamcatcher, the movie with Duddits? You remember that one.
That's right. So that's what we're going to be talking about over on patreon.com/Sleazoids podcast next week. Especially, it's going to be timed pretty closely with the new 4K restoration of Wild Things that is coming out and looks awesome. Yeah. I got to see it early. It looks very nice. And in 2 weeks' time, we are going to be going big. An episode that has been delayed and canceled as many times as the release schedule for this film. We're going to be talking about Tony Scott's Top Gun.
Oh yeah. About
time. We've only talked Tony Scott, I think, like twice, maybe 3 times on the show.
Yeah.
But we haven't done his big collaborations with Cruise. So that's what we're going to be. We're going to be talking about 1, Top Gun, and 2, Days of Thunder.
Oh, baby. Wanted to rewatch
that's
these.
the double feature, and we're going to be having a very special guest joining us who has been he's been on call. He's been on the sidelines, ready to be called in by the coaches any minute for over a year.
Batman,
but
Martin
it's time.
Scorsese. He's coming in.
That's right.
He's coming in with a case of Mellow Yellow. He's ready to talk Days of Thunder.
Marty himself.
That's right. Top Gun and Days of Thunder in 2 weeks' time over on the main feed. But once again, thanks so much for listening.
Of course.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. And everyone, keep it sleazy.
Keep it sleazy.